just because you're serving God and working in a church doesn't mean you should under-resource
I
and
agree.
and do things that are not at a level of excellence. So the first thing I try to teach pastors is you got to change how you think. Like 9 times out of 10, oh, we've been praying and God was going to send someone and it must be you. So, Brother Dean, like, are the blankets coming? I'm like, the blankets are coming. So I get up on the last day
Oh man.
and there's 10,000 people.
10,000 people.
10,000 people.
Dean Sweetman is the founder of Tithely. He's a former pastor, missionary, and entrepreneur. After developing his first giving app in 2013, Dean launched Tithely in 2015.
The platform gained success, evolving into an online ecosystem for churches and nonprofits, processing $8 billion for over 50,000 churches a year. Dean has an extraordinary story of faith, adventure, and entrepreneurship.
You have this very granular and at the same time massive horizon of a view on money and faith.
Yep.
What are some of the insights that you can share, because it's super important, I think.
Yeah, it's
Hey, if you enjoy my podcast, you're going to love my weekly newsletter. Every week, I share strategies for success and significance because, let's be honest, who doesn't want both? We're talking life-changing wisdom that has transformed my life and the lives of people I've coached all over the world. You can start with the free version, but if you upgrade to the paid version, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to my monthly webinars, interviews with top experts, and even a signed copy of my book. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. Your future self will thank you. Dean, thanks for coming on. So, a few months ago, I was at this Tithely conference, right? The Modern Church Leaders Conference that was hosted by Tithely. And I was so impressed by the team, the presentation, the software, just the journey that you've had, that in that moment I thought I have to have him on Headspace because it's a great story. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start with from the middle, right? From today.
Yep.
Tithely, I have been obviously friends with some of the members of your team for years and years and years. So I've sort of spied on the progress of this thing, and it's just unbelievable, the amount of growth that you've experienced. But tell us what Tithely is and just the reach it has right now as of today.
We essentially provide software for churches and ministries that help them do a few things. One, the main one, is we help them easily take online or mobile donations. Back when I was in ministry many, many years, I remember trying to get a giving button on my church website in the 90s, and man, it was a struggle. And so I'd always been very fascinated with, how to make giving easy, because, Amazon worked it out, like less clicks, more purchasing. And
that's right, yeah.
The more you can make a payment or a donation frictionless, the more there is going to be of that donation. And you just, people want to give, you just got to make it easy for them to do so. And we've proven that with some of the things that we invented, some of the technology that we adapted. But if you can make it very simple, and the biggest breakthrough was to give mobile, right? So I don't have to be in the building. And in the early days, that was like, pastors were like, I don't know if I like that. Like, I want them to be in church. And I'm like, well, they're not in church every week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there's something about the sort of the physical act of giving sacrificially that has almost like an aura, and actually it is a genuine connection, right? An emotional connection.
100%. And we talk about how to, keep that, right? Even though you're giving digitally. But most churches, denominations, they'll have a moment of prayer or kind of worship around the moment. It's very, part of our service and worship to the Lord. And so, hey, like you used to tell them to hold their envelope and let's pray it. And now you just hold your phone and you pray the same prayer of blessing, right?
So how many churches are you serving right now worldwide?
We are approaching 40,000.
That's extraordinary.
Churches. Yeah, we're about 80% in North America, 82% US and Canada. We're also in the Asia Pacific. My home country of Australia, or in New Zealand, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and then a little bit in the UK. And there's opportunities for other currencies. We actually sell software into about 50 countries
Do you? Okay.
because we have
Interesting.
our CRM products, we have website, mobile
Yeah.
app
Yeah.
products that we sell as well. And so, yeah, the reach is pretty global now, and we're approaching 8 billion raised.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you think about, you started in 2015. I thought to get to $1 billion was going to take me the rest of my life, and
That's right. Yeah.
it was going to be a great goal. And I remember in April 2016, we crossed $1 million in donations in one
Mm-hmm.
month.
Yeah. And it was incredible, right?
It's just mind blowing. Just to put that in perspective, this is December, biggest giving month of the year. We'll do about 235 million just in December
In December. Yeah.
in giving. So it's been an incredible journey. We're a business. We make money. We process payments. We sell software.
Yeah.
Now we do it at price points that we feel like are very fair for our customer. We probably offer more value than any of our competitors as far as what you get for how much you pay. And so, we keep the prices low. We serve small church plants, all the way through to the Saddlebacks and North Coasts of the world. So we skew
Yeah.
all the way
Yeah.
up and down size
Well,
wise.
I've been running donations on my nonprofit, the Ascend Academy, in
Hmm.
Africa since the beginning on Tithely.
Right,
So and
right,
it's a really small operation, but I just found it to be incredibly helpful, just easy to onboard, and I'm yet using a fraction of what you guys are offering. And
right,
what struck me when I was at the product presentation, I think it was the first sort of non-mainstream, I would say. I mean, it is sort of mainstream in some sense, but niche in the sense of this is serving the Christian world, the church world, and the ministry world. Presentation that I've seen done at that level of extraordinary sort of Apple level excellence,
right.
and that was very impressive. And I gotta be transparent with you, right? I'm pretty ADHD. I don't like being in crowds. So by the
Yeah,
time the presentation came about, I was like, maybe I'll go grab a coffee to Starbucks. I sort of
yeah,
know the product in general. And just for some sort of serendipity, I stuck around. And I was so happy I did, just because it struck me as this is a really good team
hmm,
of people who really like each other. And they have a standard of professionalism, of
hmm,
rehearsal, of prep, of excellence
yeah,
that is very comparable to some of the top brands out there.
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how did you guys shape that kind of culture and that kind of approach?
Yeah, that's not an accident. That was very much on purpose. We started these. We've gone probably 4 years now, where we'll do twice a year. We'll do product announcements, and in the early days when we're thinking it through, we're like, we want it to be like an Apple event, except they have goodness knows what budget. I think the first
Yeah,
one we
so-
did, we were in a guy's closet trying to getting jerry rigging all the gear together, and it was interesting. But you start with what you have, and then it evolved, and
yeah,
we invested in equipment and production and all the things, and that kind of just goes from just a philosophy that I've always had. Just because you're serving God and working in a church doesn't mean you should under resource
I
and
agree.
and do things that are not at a level of excellence, because people walk into your church who are executives, smart people, hardworking people, and if you're putting on like a dog and pony show, and it's kind of band-aided together, those people don't typically get attracted to that. They get
I,
attracted
I
to
always say the same. I say something similar in all respects, right? Look, excellence attracts excellence.
yeah, yeah,
And I saw excellence, and I thought this is quite remarkable. I mean, that's really honestly that's part of the reason why you and I chatted somewhere in between things, but I was
yeah,
like, I want to have this guy on because
mm,
what can we learn from this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you find that there's almost like this niche expectation? I want to come across as very politically correct, or actually better, maybe kind, right? Because politically correct is disingenuous. But do you find that sort of the church world can be perhaps lacking in excellence oftentimes.
Hmm.
I do personally,
Definitely.
you know.
Definitely.
And how does this? What are you doing with this? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, are you not only sort of selling, obviously, and saying this is incredible, this is an incredible product, well developed, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
But I feel like you're doing something more than that.
Yeah. It's there's definitely a mindset that you have to change.
Yeah.
The church world typically tries to either do too much with too little, or they don't try to do anything at all, and they kind of start from a place of defeat. So the first thing I try to teach pastors is you got to change how you think, and they're going to say, and I'm going to say, hey, go and you should get that $40,000 LED screen. Well, you should go get this, go and spend 100K on a camera setup. And they're like, well, we can't afford that. And I said, I'll say like, well, how many people in your church? Well, we have 250 households.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the average income of the, household per income in the county? Oh, it's about, 72,000. Oh, so we're going to add up 250 households by seven. That's your GDP. Typically, that's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So the first thing you got to teach the leadership is they're like a governor over this GDP. They talk to it, they inspire them about it, they talk to them about their money, they try to get them to save, to give, to be generous, all the thing. That's your job. Their spiritual health, their financial health, their family health, you're the governor of this group. And so once you start to teach leaders that, then they go, and so collectively, your church is, $25 million in household income. And what's your budget? Oh, $500,000. Oh, so you're
Yep.
not anywhere near 10%.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
And then you just go down the journey, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
getting pastors so back to the point of excellence, you got to start from a position of, the church needs to be blessed to have the finances to do the excellent things. And it usually stems from most of the time pastors are afraid to
Mm-hmm.
talk to the issue of money.
Yeah.
And therefore they will not have I know churches with less people bringing in more money because the guy knows how to talk about it and educate, from scripture about biblical economics. And I know guys that never say a thing and they never got enough money. And I'm like, it's not rocket science, guys. Here, you
Yeah.
gotta.
There's a correlation there somewhere,
Yeah.
but I think there are people that in the sort of the Christian world who almost have this view, they see things other people don't see, or care about things that others don't care about. I'm curious about where's that coming from in you. I'm sort of that way as well. I'm just a little off, a little strange. I've never sort of felt that I fit in well,
Mhm.
and that's fine, right? It's totally okay. And I find that your story. I remember you telling this story that I think it was you were at some sort of Starbucks or fast food, and you
Yeah.
just sort of somebody just did this with a card, and it just worked,
Yeah.
and you thought, why can't this work at church
Right.
when it comes to donations? Where does that come from? Like, tell me
Yeah.
how did you, where did you get that?
I've always been entrepreneurial. So I grew up with a dad who, I watched lose money, make money, make money, lose money. Like he was very entrepreneurial. Ended up good. He did good. Um, I just, and I have this thing on me about growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything I touch, I want to grow. And so that's the mindset I bring. I sold real estate for many years, and that's how I funded my first 10 years on the mission field in Asia and Africa. Was I'd go and sell real estate for 6 months, and then I'd go and
Interesting.
do all kinds of stuff around the world.
And you were based out of Australia at this time,
Yeah, I
right?
was in Sydney. I was flying to Hong Kong selling apartments to doctors and lawyers taking 10% deposits because when China was going to take over Hong Kong, that was a known thing when the British left. And
Yeah. Interesting.
so I've always been in sales, and always thought about growth. And so I just brought that mindset to everything. And, I wanted my churches to grow. I wanted the revenue to grow for the only one reason is because I wanted the kingdom to grow.
That's right.
And you don't have to be doing this very long to work out that when you're under-resourced compared to being resourced, it's like a whole doesn't even
Compare. Yeah.
not even compare.
Yeah.
And
And
so
you had this thing that is really unusual. I find it to be very rare that somebody has almost a desire to, let's say, be a pastor, right? Do ministry
right,
work. I'm sort of similar. And I came into it later in life. I was I was raised by my parents were Marxist, actually, right?
right,
So
amazing,
I grew up in like complete atheistic ecosystem.
amazing,
I knew nobody who believed in God, basically, growing up, right? So I came to the faith as a complete pagan, right? I was
love
like
it.
in my mid-20s, and eventually I sort of got this spark of, I think I want to do that as well.
Yeah,
And I've been sort of, because of that, I've been bivocational for most of
yeah,
my life, and I want this and I want that. I want the
right,
entrepreneurial and I want to be able to have kingdom impact. It just makes me happy. I feel like it's a
right,
responsibility. I feel like it's a burden on a good burden, meaning
yep,
I want to do it, and I've never been able to separate myself from it.
yep.
How did that come together for you, character
Yeah.
wise, drive wise?
I'm I know a lot of bivocational pastors, and it works great, and many of them should be. I got a buddy of mine. He has an insurance agency. He really only does a day a week on the insurance agency, makes big six-figure income over there, and like pastors the church like 4 days a week. It's phenomenal, right?
Mm,
So I encourage that. If you want things to go beyond a certain point, it does require a certain level of focus
yeah, I think so too.
where you have to say, I'm going to put every egg in this basket. I'm going to go
Yeah.
100% for this. So, ministry wise, I always did that. I dabbled on the side, did real estate and such. But when I started the company and and I'd gone through a pretty kind of interesting season personally in my life, I knew it was the right time to go all in on building this business. And so I took a year off, got kind of in a good, space in my head and my heart and making sure my motives were correct and then just started building the team
Hmm.
and we went all in. So I'm a little bit like I can get a bit ADHD too and just look at the new shiny thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
But
that way.
the older
It's a
I've gotten, the
condition. Yeah.
more disciplined I've become at saying no,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is key.
I'm still learning that lesson, Dean. So thank you for the inspiration. Like, I want to be like you when you grow up. When you were in Australia still, where did you go? Where did you do this missionary work that you're talking about in Africa, for example?
Yeah, so
Because
I was based in Sydney.
hmm
My first trip was to the Philippines, and then I used to do crazy things. I'd get the yellow pages. This is how old I am. I'm dating myself, but I'd be in the Philippines doing meetings, and then I'd get the yellow pages. I'd fly to Delhi, and I'd go to a hotel, and I'd get the yellow pages, and I'd look for Christian churches, and
okay.
I'd call them up, just cold call, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Dean. Like, I'm an evangelist. Can I take you to lunch?" And they got like 9 times out of 10. Oh, we've been praying and God was going to send someone and it must be you. So, so I was prospecting for I did that all through Asia.
How
And
old were
then
you when you're doing
in my
this?
20s. So I
Okay,
was like, yeah, like 22 through to 32.
that's remarkable. Okay,
And then my pastor, had got an invite to go to Uganda. And I said, can I carry your bags and come along? He's like, absolutely. And so that led me down I ended up coming back, doing 6 weeks of meetings and building all kinds of stuff. And I'm seeing some of the most incredible miracles that you could ever imagine. And raising a ton of money. I remember I met a Finnish missionary and I want to buy like 1,000 blankets for this refugee camp in Rwanda. And like just miraculous things. And I'm in
mm,
this village which is like a tent village for weeks and promising these blankets. And I'm teaching about faith and all this stuff. We're like a day to go and the blankets are not there. And the elders were like, Brother Dean, like, are the blankets coming? I'm like, the blankets are coming. So I get up on the last day,
Oh
and
man,
there's 10,000 people.
10,000 people.
10,000 people, and like the sun's going down. It's just a beautiful. I'm heading out the next day, and I hear this helicopter in the distance, and it was my buddy from Finland. He had his own helicopter, and he landed right there, and out came the blankets, dude. It was like,
Oh my God.
it was just
I
awesome.
love stories like that. That's
So
fantastic.
like I have 100 of those stories, but
Yeah,
all of
I
that
bet.
just taught me, anything's possible. You got it behind you. Dream big. Dream.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you can't out dream God. You just gotta put. And if your vision and dream gets in anywhere near the orbit of His, like you don't have to be right over the target. Like God's big. I don't think there's the exact thing. There's like, if you've got a gift and you want God to use you, just get somewhere near, and God will work it out. He'll open the doors. And you just get in that slipstream and away you go. And so I did that for 10 years. And then
That's remarkable.
and then moved to the US, which is another whole story.
So what was the sort of the inciting incident on moving to the US? What was the thing?
I just always loved America. The same pastor he was preaching in South Bend, Indiana in 94. And I carried the bags and sold the cassette tapes back then, as they were. And I'm selling, he's preaching at this conference, and I'm selling his books and stuff. And this guy comes up and says, who are you? And I'm like, I'm here selling tapes. He says, no, what do you do? I said, I'm an evangelist and I help churches grow. And he's like, will you come and preach at my church? I'm like, absolutely.
Just like that.
Columbia, Missouri. I'm in South Bend, first time in America. And I said, I'll come next year. So this is pre-email. We swap addresses.
Okay.
We write to each other.
Oh, snail mail, right? Snail mail.
So I land in LA on Continental Airlines, and I take TWA to St. Louis. He picks me up. It's February because like there's snow, and then we drive to Columbus, about a 2-hour drive on I-70. About halfway out, I see this giant billboard. This Sunday, the Thunder from Down Under.
That's you.
I'm like, that's weird. Another 20 miles.
You're the
Sunday.
Thunder from Down Under.
I'm like, dude, who's that? He says, that's you.
It's like a boxing match ad, right? The Thunder from Down Under.
So we get there, and these are beautiful Midwest, like,
oh my gosh,
all of the earth people you've ever met.
Yeah.
And he happened to have an insurance agency, this guy.
Yeah.
Second to the other guy I know. And he's just started this church. He's got 40 people in this little white clapboard little church,
Is that
and
right?
we get to Friday night, the place is jacked. It's like packed. He's got 100 people in there because of the Thunder from Down Under.
Of course.
Heard an Australian preacher, no. So
No, he has no idea. Like, he just talked to you at the table selling tapes, right?
That's it. And I just...
But he set a bar for you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have like... Okay,
Yeah.
am I supposed to be this incredible prophetic sort of presence, or
Right.
is that what you're thinking?
All of the above, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so I do my thing. Well, Friday night's packed. No seats.
Oh, wow.
Saturday night, there's just 150 people. There's people laying on the floor. By Sunday night, we'd had 250 people come to the meetings, and his church like quadrupled. I came back the following year. So here's the moral of the story. The year later, I'm like, I want to plant a church in Atlanta. And I ring him up. I go, mate, I think I'm supposed to plant a church in Atlanta. He goes, well, my assistant, Amy, her parents are in Atlanta. Why don't you? So I write them a letter.
You did.
And they're like, we'd love to have you come and visit. Okay. I go to Atlanta, meet these people, and share the vision. Hey, we're planting a church in Atlanta. And they said, we'll be waiting for you. You can start in our living room. We went home, came back, got a green card 12 months later. We started a church in their living room. How did that all happen? Because I went and served another man's vision.
Yeah. And you were the Thunder from Down Under.
To the Thunder, to the family in Atlanta,
Yeah.
And all those people are still in that church today.
Is that right?
So it's just...
That's extraordinary.
You gotta, my kind of catchphrase, if you wanted to kind of pin me down, is you move, God moves.
Yeah. If you move, God moves. I like that. I'm
You
gonna
move
steal that.
God. So
Yeah,
I just
I agree.
go, like, if it's cold calling churches in Sri Lanka, trying to take some pastor who I end up becoming friends with and going back and doing meetings and helping him raise money, to, starting a business. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
not a
yeah.
lot different.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And this is super encouraging to me, obviously, because I am pretty ADHD and bivocational, and I do sometimes go, what is wrong with me? Sort of. So, and I'm sure there is something wrong with me, and still, hearing you say those things help me feel like I'm in good company.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You're an entrepreneur, man. And
Yeah.
and like I've had two kind of big phases of my kind of ministry / career: the traveling phase, the missions phase, and then the pastoral. Eventually, I started 60 churches here in North America. So I oversaw 60 congregations and all that entailed, which I loved every minute. And so, and now here I am, serving the same customer, but just from
Yeah, on the
another.
other side. Yeah. That's fantastic. So speak to me a little bit, if you could, from you have this very granular and at the same time massive horizon of a view
Mm-hmm.
on money and faith.
Yep.
What are some of the insights that you can
Sure.
share, because it's just super important, I think.
Yeah. 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 It's 135 billion will get given to the faith sector this year in just the US alone.
Just the US. That is extra. That's probably
Extraordinary.
extraordinary.
There's no one ever close. Like, Americans are the most generous people on the face of the earth, and that's
I
just.
I love that you have a number associated with this, because I mean, I'm releasing a book right now called Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, and one of the chapters is, this is an extraordinarily generous culture. There's something in the cultural
And
DNA
that's
that
just a
is.
faith.
Hmm.
You put in like hospitals,
Yeah,
schools, the arts, it's like nearly half a trillion.
that is absolutely stunning.
So there's a good resource that if you wanted to write more about it, it's the Giving USA report.
Okay.
And if you grab that, you'll see all the stats.
Do
So
you think? What do you think that the cultural? What is the cultural texture that propels people to do that? It has to be more than just the fact that it's a prosperous country, right?
no, yeah, because there's plenty of prosperous countries that don't give like Americans do.
Exactly.
I think it's a few things. This nation was founded under Judeo-Christian values. Judeo-Christian values begin with hard work, family, generosity, serving others. So when that's the foundation of the nation, now you could argue America's wandered off here or there, but I don't think you take the root.
I don't think. I think the cultural stays even when people move on.
Yeah,
Some people might move on from the faith, but the
right.
values stay.
It's in exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's why America is good. I'm not happy when I hear people tear America down, because
Same here.
they don't know how good it is because they haven't been other places. I've been all over the world. You've been all over the world.
Yep.
You turn up in a country and you go, thank God I live in America.
72% of the people on Earth live under authoritarian regimes, like
Right,
5.8 billion, I believe. That
right,
was sort of the.
right, right.
I mean, we have no concept of that here because this
Zero.
is so normal here, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
the tearing down, the bashing of America, I
Disgrace.
have I have a problem with it,
Yeah,
as an immigrant.
oh, totally. As an immigrant too.
Yeah.
So you've got this underlying value that was kind of birthed as part of America. But then I think America has, as usual, America leads. And, whether it be technology or whatever, like business, there's parts that we're slipping a little bit on the world stage here or there. Hopefully we can get refocused on a few things. But, there's been tremendous leadership in the church in the US. Now, the church in the US is not perfect, and there's no perfect church because there's no perfect people. But on the whole, you'd have to say that the Christian leadership that's come out of the US in the last, call it 30, 40 years, around faith, around, bigness, expanding, global push, like all the things that we do naturally as a country, have spilled into the whole faith area.
And I would say also theology,
Mm-hmm.
writing, research, translations,
All of that.
all of those sort of adjacent
Yeah.
things that come out of the faith,
Right.
and it also out of prosperity, but also I think it's just this generous spirit of the American people.
Absolutely.
It just overflows, doesn't it?
When you think about, like, you see an ad for like St. Jude or the Shriners, like these hospitals for sick, dying children,
Yeah.
all funded by people.
Unbelievable.
Like, literally
That's extraordinary.
Americans, and they don't charge the family 1 cent to get that child whole again.
That's
I don't know another country on earth that does that.
Do you find this? Obviously, I come from all over, right? This is my fourth continent, actually. So, but what I find, and I'm curious about what you think of Australia in that context, is that especially in, well, the third world countries are just third world. They're poor. I mean, it's hard for them to think in an in an expansive way, in a generous way, because there's just so many internal problems. I get that.
Right.
And perhaps maybe there's a chicken and the egg problem there as well, right?
Well, there's case studies though. Like,
Yeah.
Ghana and South Korea became nations the same year.
Ah, very
South
interesting.
Korea embraced capitalism.
Yeah.
Ghana embraced communism.
Oh, I mean, don't even get me started on communism.
Right.
I was there. Okay.
Right.
I was in Mozambique.
Right.
They became
seen
a
it.
nation. I literally moved to Mozambique as a kid. I was 7 years old. My dad was there to help raise an economy after they collapsed the economy with the Marxist government. So I grew up in the Soviet Union. So I have all kinds of insights about that. But I would say beyond that, the sort of the post-Christian West, the prosperous West,
Yep.
I think what happened is, what I see happening at least, and maybe you can confirm or deny this in relation to Europe or Australia even, is that the culture shifted towards philanthropy, charity being the job not of the individual, but of the state.
The state. Right.
And I find, at least in Europe, in Western Europe, I find that to be true. Like it's very, the demarcation is clear.
Yeah.
And I feel like people lose. You lose when you're not expected to give and be generous as an individual. In the U.S., it is private and it's public as well. There's things that are government sort of driven, but I think the baseline of individual philanthropy is absolutely there,
Right.
and it's not there in Western Europe. How is that in Australia?
Australia is in between. If you've got Americans, probably the hardest working people, most innovation, all the things. Europeans, you don't see many homeless people in Europe, but they do have social services.
They do, absolutely.
Everyone's taxes, right?
Yeah. It's state sort of originated from
But
the
it's
state.
still your money.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They're spending on your behalf, right?
Of course, yeah. But the culture is, this is the government's job. That's my point. Yeah.
Correct. The way we do it is, let's give you more of your money and let you decide what you want to do with your money.
Yeah.
And when you put the money back in the person who's worked hard for it, then, and they have a heart for them. Maybe they love animals.
Yeah.
And they want to do.
That's exactly it.
rescues,
That's
right?
exactly it.
Now we're doing good things because it's coming out of my heart and I'm motivated and I'm a person of faith. So I'm going to go give to the mission of my local church. Whereas the other way around, the government gets it and they just, put it goodness knows where. And it's just not a good, and it doesn't do what you said. It does, because something happens to the receiver.
Yeah. And to the giver. Yeah.
The giver is something even bigger happens.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Jesus said it. It's
absolutely.
better to give than receive. That's because the thing that happens in the giver is miraculous, heart-changing, mind-changing. You're going against the grain of your selfish human nature. That's why God instituted tithes and offerings. He doesn't need the money. He's just trying to crack that propensity for selfishness.
That's right.
And God knows if you can trust him with, your soul, and you can trust him with your money, you can trust him with everything. And so it's just a whole cycle of how I think God wants people to grow by freely being generous. And I think and that comes from our Christian roots, right? Here in the USA, we're so blessed.
I think in the US, the other thing that I admire tremendously is people like yourself, entrepreneurs who are kingdom entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
And this is like a breed of people. I
Yep.
find it to be absolutely extraordinary
Yeah.
that there's so many. And I would love to hear some stories about that, because
Oh yeah.
I find that there are so many people that are hardworking, entrepreneurial, they take risks, all of that stuff to make the money. In their heart, it's still the kingdom.
Right.
At the
Yeah.
center of everything they do is still the kingdom. So it's like there's just a different energy about them, the
Yep.
the drive, the generosity, almost like this holistic joy that they enjoy. Can you tell me what you've seen in America in
I
that
think
regard?
I think those of us with the gift of giving, right? And it is a gift. It's in the New Testament,
Yeah.
right? You have there are some people in the church that have we're all commanded to give. We're all taught to give. It's very easy to teach the Bible about generosity. Some people have a gift, and typically, if you have a gift of giving, you know you have a gift of making money. it kind of goes hand in hand.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think what's happened in the last 20 years is that person, man or woman, is felt free to exercise that gift. Whereas before it's like, oh, I need to be a full-time pastor, or I need to be a prophet, or I'm going to be a teacher. The gift of giving, which is connected to the gift of generating wealth, I think has been elevated to the point where we're not going around telling everyone what we're
Hmm.
doing. It's just like we don't mind talking about it. And there's a realization that if we're going to do some of this stuff that if we're going to build the things we want to build and help the people we want to help, we need billions of dollars. And
Do you feel that this comes from sort of this very like long-tailed cultural trend of separation between the sacred and the secular?
mm,
Is that where it
yeah,
comes from?
yeah, I think we're in it, we're not of it, right? So I
Hmm.
love being kind of doing business in the world. It's just I love it.
Yeah.
You know,
Have you ever struggled with the duality of it? Like, and honestly, I say this because for the longest time, I don't have this anymore, but for the longest time, I felt that giftedness of entrepreneurial experimentation, of risk taking, of business stuff like
mm,
that, I actually muted it on purpose
right,
because I wanted to be holy.
yeah,
I wanted to please God, and I felt that maybe that part of me somewhere, like logically I understand that's not the case, but somewhere in my bones there is, I'm not sure,
yep,
you
yep.
know. Have you ever felt that struggle? Hey, if you enjoy my podcast, you're going to love my weekly newsletter. Every week I share strategies for success and significance because, let's be honest, who doesn't want both? We're talking life-changing wisdom that has transformed my life and the lives of people I've coached all over the world. You can start with the free version, but if you upgrade to the paid version, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to my monthly webinars, interviews with top experts, and even a signed copy of my book. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. Your future self will thank you.
Yes, but that's why I feel like one of the things I'm supposed to do is get people to be free from that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like God God has no problem with us having things, owning property, having assets that grow, invest wisely. God is into all of that. Um, he's just like, what's going through you to me, and like if it's going through me and I'm not got my hands all over it, I'm keeping it all for myself. I can function in a pretty high level of generosity, not having to worry about my own needs because I know God's going to take care of me. I'm going to be wise, be a good steward with what I have, but then I'm just going to live to give and get that engine, that muscle. The way we give, I give through a DAF, a donor advised fund that's connected to an investment, accounts that I have. And, in life, when we do like a recurring donation to my son's church. But like at the end of the year, man, we just start getting excited
Mm.
and like, okay, there's a charity here in Park City where they literally take veterans and put them on like like a chair with skis attached to them, and they take them down the mountain for the day. And like underprivileged kids, handicapped kids. And
Yeah.
I'm skiing a couple of years ago, watching this kid have the greatest time of his life.
So it spoke to you. Yeah.
And I come to find out they were based there. It's a charity. It's all donations. My wife and I, they've been on the list, for the last 3 years. We love giving them, stuff like that. We give to the arts. We give to churches, obviously. So, like, I just can't wait to the end of the year where I can write bigger checks. It's just like, that's the whole point. It's like the whole point for me is to be able to do that. So,
have you spoken to other people that are sort of on both sides of the where they fell or where they are now, right?
yeah,
Some must fall into, okay, now I'm more comfortable, more free. I've sort of healed. I've recalibrated. Others are not. How do you create a dialogue? Because I really feel like we're all of us are on a continuum, right? We become more free, more mature, more aligned, more whole. So there's grace for everybody.
Yeah.
Look, you're there. That's fine, right?
right.
Have you witnessed sort of a dialogue? This is a broad question, so I'm sorry if I'm being a bit too vague. A dialogue between that camp and this camp, the camp that says, hey, this is all kingdom.
Right.
And the camp that says, no, this is not our business to be sort of lowered to the level of whatever.
Right.
Dirty finances, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Look, like, giving is such it's got to be a revelation. So I can't force someone to function at a level that they don't have a sense of revelation about. Now, it's not that I'm better or worse. And I have I function to a certain level, and I know guys that are giving away millions
Yeah.
and challenge the heck out of me. But it starts with, you've got to believe it. And it's got to be real, and God's got to drop. So it's like your faith. You had a mustard seed, something happened, it got a little spark, it grew a little shoot, and your faith started to grow. The generosity thing is another type of seed that you got to get by revelation. It's like getting through addiction. It's like being a better husband. It comes from a revelation of what the Bible says, which therefore determines how I'm supposed to act and react and live my life in accordance with what I believe in the scripture. When that seed goes in, the seed of generosity, and I give away my first $100 or my first $1,000, one of my favorite things to do is, I'm in an airports a lot, and if I'm sitting there getting something to eat, most of the time that girl behind the bar, single mother, right? Like, boom. I'm just at a point now where I can give her $1,000.
Yeah.
And hopefully walk away and not have her see me do it. There's times where they see it and it's like tears and it's crazy. But like, I can't wait till I can do that, like, for 10,000. There's this account on Instagram I follow, Tips for Jesus, and the guy literally does $5,000 and $10,000 and writes Tips for Jesus and photographs the thing. It's like,
oh, that's extraordinary.
So back. Once I get a revelation of it, and I have the means, I have this gift of generosity that I'm cultivating. I have the gift of generating wealth that I'm cultivating through my entrepreneurial efforts and building my business and all the things. And now I'm just living my best life because it's what you're supposed to be doing.
And I think, and obviously there's people like that everywhere. I don't know. I think America has almost like this critical mass of people like you, like others that have that same kingdom heart, the ability to give, the giftedness of entrepreneurial development, and there's something about being around people like that that's infectious.
Yep, for sure.
Like you mentioned that guy who calls you higher, right? Like you go, oh, I can do better than this, right? How do I do that?
Right.
I think America has that's really a tremendous, almost like gravitational pull of people. Do you agree with that?
100%. It's, like my Australian friends, because I've been America first guy like since day one. I just love the place.
Yeah.
And unless you're here, you don't get it.
That's right. Yeah.
There's certain things about American culture that you have to be in to
Yeah.
understand.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Right. And it took me, I left like the beaches of Sydney to like Lawrenceville, Georgia, in the middle of kind
Yeah.
of nowhere. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You
it
gave
took
something
me,
up, right? Yeah, I get it.
it was like, and I got the hang. It took me a year or two to work, America out a bit. I like politics. I like business. I read periodicals every day, global publications, right? I want information from everywhere. And it just takes a minute. And then, but if you just look on, you think, oh, they just love America and they think America's the best. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, we do, because it is.
I have the same exact problem. Like I talk to people, in Latin America, and Latin America is interesting. Latin America historically leans way socialist,
Yeah.
because they
Changing
had,
now.
huh?
It's
Yeah.
changing.
Oh, it's changing. Like I'm super excited about Milei in
Yeah,
Argentina.
I love that guy.
Okay, so here's the story about if you like that guy. So my Marxist dad, right, who is in Chile, him and I talk every week. We just
Yeah.
have the best relationship, and he's like, "Hey, do you hear about that crazy guy in Argentina? He's gonna totally ruin the country." And I'm like, "Dad, first of all, it's already ruined for a long time. Okay, like you can't go lower than that." But I don't know who is that. He goes, his name is Malay, and he's this really like fascist crazy guy. And I'm like, all right, I'll take a look. And because him and I debate on things all the time.
Right.
So I listen, I check out a couple of interviews and I text him back. I'm like, Dad, this guy's awesome. Like, I hope they don't kill him for what he's trying to do, but I think he's going to succeed if they let him.
Right.
And he was like, really? I go, yeah, this is why. So I list off,
And a year later, dude,
a year later, unbelievable.
running a surplus.
Unbelievable. The extraordinary change, right? I thought, A, they're not going to let him. B, it's going to take a little bit longer than this, So, but I'm a huge fan. Of course, I'm an economics major. I have a master's in economics, so I geek out on things like that.
Yep.
But I totally agree with you. And I've been around circles and people, and I see that in the United States, they are literally giving groups, these entrepreneurial people who get together in these sort of pods or giving groups or whatever, and they give the equivalent of a small country's GDP
Right.
every year.
Yep. Yep.
It is extraordinary. I just don't think anybody really understands until you're here, just like you said. So I speak to people in Latin America, and they're like, "You, the Yankees, man, they're rah, 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 rah."
Yeah.
I go, "You have no idea what you're talking about."
Right.
Same
Right.
thing. I have friends of course, in Russia. I just had a conversation with someone in Russia who was like, "Can you tell your government to stop harassing us because blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, dude, there's a little bit more to that, So, but I totally agree. I'm a huge fan, and so, but thank you for sharing that. So, okay, so let's wrap it up. And I know you have to go, and we have Christmas plans and everything. Can you tell me? Okay, two things on the spot. One, what is the one thing you would say to someone who is sort of a faith person, but wrestling with this whole finance, secular, sacred kind of dilemma?
Yep.
Can you give me like what is the insight?
Yep. Yeah. What I advise people, and this goes from pastors to church members to business people to whatever, it starts with you getting a revelation from Scripture, so that you got to get the seed planted. Otherwise, you'll never work it out, because it's not natural. To give your money away is not natural.
It's supernatural, I guess, right?
It has to be. So you got to get the seed. It's going to change the way you think, and it's going to change your behavior. So that's number one. And then you start small, and every time you give, it's like some fertilizer for that seed. And you'll don't people go, well, when I get rich and when I get enough, then no, you got to start today.
And you need to decide where you're going to give, right?
Yeah, and I point people to, if you're plugged into a good local church,
Yeah.
right? You want to be, that's your storehouse, right? That's where you're being fed. You're hearing the word. You're part of a small group. You're worshiping with the saints. You're being built up in your faith. Tithe to that. Now, 10%. Wow, Dean, that was quick. Maybe you can do 2%. Like, can we start with, maybe you can do 1%.
Yeah.
And every 6 months you look at it and you look at your budget, and I'm big on personal knowing where all your money is at any given moment. You've got all the apps now. You can log into your bank. You can do all your own banking. It's really easy to know where your money's going. And then you'll just slowly but surely, the goal is you want a forest of generosity on the inside of you that you are going to cultivate and prune. And, maybe I'm going to pull back giving from there this year. And you're going to pray and you're going to talk with your spouse and we're going to want to do this. And you're going to keep planting. And so in 10 years, there's a jungle of generosity living on the inside of you that you have planted and cultivated, and just the fruit just keeps on going and it never stops.
That is very, very good. I thank you for that. Okay, last question. Think of yourself of your younger self in a moment of you go left or you go right, pivotal moment.
Yep.
Right? Can you think of what that age is, what the context is? Can you tell us what that moment in time is?
Yep.
And what would you say to your younger self right now in that moment?
There were two. One was to do with my salvation. And so I left school at the 10th grade. I was not a good student. And I had this job, a terrible job. I wanted to be a professional surfer. And the guy that I'd gotten this job with, he'd just gotten born again. So I'd gone to this little charismatic church on the northern beaches of Sydney. He said, you got to come. I'm like, no, I was raised Catholic. And so, eventually I said, if I come one time, will you never ask me again? And of course, I get
famous last words,
again,
right?
getting prayed for. I'm like, the whole thing. It was a cool moment. So obviously that was, and I was getting in with the wrong crowd, and that just snapped me into a different trajectory for my life. So that was the obvious one. I went, after 30 years of ministry, I went through a pretty tough personal situation in my marriage. Ended up getting divorced. It was around the time where I was trying to decide, should I start this company? Should I? And, without going into all the gory details, we were in different forms of counseling for a very long time. And it was just brutal. And for both of us were sick, mentally sick, physically sick. Like it is. And so there was this this moment where we just mutually decided that for our own sanity, it was best to split up. Not what God wanted. God's got grace. God hates divorce. He doesn't hate divorced people.
That's right.
So got through that, took that year off. And if that didn't go that, like on the surface, you go, Dean, it could have been so much better if you stayed together. Well, we were trying to stay together for 10 years. Like, it wasn't like we didn't just wake up and go, let's just.
Yeah. It wasn't on impulse. It was.
No.
You tried.
Much input from people, we trusted and we loved and are still friends to this day. And so that was a moment. Now, it was a terrible moment.
Yeah.
But God used it for good, because I took that year off. My church was magnificent, and just kind of let both of us kind of heal. And, there was kind of, maybe I would go back. And kind of as things kind of rolled out, like, no, that's not the right thing for me to do. I think I'm supposed to start this company. And so through a very tragic moment, this business was born. And when I think about who we've helped and churches we've kept open, and like, God has a way of, working things for good.
Yeah, for those who love him. Yeah.
For those who love him. And so those are two pretty big moments in my life.
So what would you say to yourself in that moment from the place you're in now?
Yeah. Look, there's some things in the way I see it and the way I've lived my life, some things I have control over and I will exercise control over. I can make decisions that shape and form and point my destiny. There are some other things that I don't have control over. I don't have control of other people, nor do I, nor do I want it. I don't. And so when I can't control an outcome, I've learnt now to be less fighting for an outcome that I can't control, because it just spins your wheels and it makes it worse. So I think the realization of you do what you can do to make
Yeah.
it good for
People,
you and your
yeah,
family and the people you love.
yeah,
If someone doesn't want to do that and they're doing something else, just pray for them, let it be, and you
yeah.
go do you.
Hmm.
And that's probably, it's hard. You hate. I hate losing. I hate failure. I hate things that don't work out. And so you hang on, sometimes too long, to your own detriment.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden, you're good for no one, and you can
yeah.
barely keep your own world, kind
Hmm.
of spinning. So, little life lessons you learn along the way.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you for spending some time with me and sharing your stories, hearing mine. I think you're doing extraordinary work. I was
Thank you, sir.
I was very inspired actually by almost like this very integrated approach of kingdom first and also a level of excellence that I really think it's extraordinary, and it's the secret to your success. So congratulations, and thanks
More
for
to
joining
come.
me.
Good to spend time with you, mate. Thank you.